Hello, audience, and today we're going to be doing something a tiddly tiny bit different, as I'm going to be trying to judge you based off your favorite sci-fi fantasy author, going through thoroughly and giving general, overly simplified, broad assumptions about what your favorite author says about you as a fantasy sci-fi reader. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the first one, shall we? Tolkien. Either you're extremely well read in fantasy, but you appreciate a classic that kind of started it all, or you kind of read this fantasy once, and it's like the only fantasy you've read, and you don't want to seem dumb, so you just point to Lord of the Rings as a safety net. There's no in between. It's one of the two. Jim Butcher. The Dresden Files. You played with your friends in the backyard growing up pretending to be all kinds of various fantastical people, maybe reenacting Helm's Deep, I don't know. Reading this series gives you a little bit of that feeling you had as a kid, and oh, you cherish that so much. Robert Jordan, Wheel of Time. You are not afraid of commitment. You may even be still in your high school relationship. When someone says a series could be 14 books long, you take that as a challenge. You immerse yourself in every world you come across, and you appreciate pretty much all angles of the fantasy genre. Brandon Sanderson. You haven't read a ton of the classics, but you do read quite a bit of modern fantasy. Mistborn may have even been your first entry point to the genre as a whole. You personally are a fun person who likes to have some small social gatherings, but you also relate to a lot of the mental illness represented throughout the Cosmere, and you don't like big parties. You like smaller events with just like a few friends hanging out. George R.R. Martin. You have very negative feelings towards the world. You also have a lot of very dense political opinions, most of which you've researched pretty well, and overall, you really like reading. A lot. Fancy prose are not a turnoff to you, and you're going to discuss pretty much all the deeper themes of the material you read to the point where it's like a little bit obnoxious. A little bit. Like, you can't just have fun, turn off your brain enjoyment. You need something that's going to be on that deeper level. And you also resent people a little bit who just watch the show and never read the books and talk about it like they have. You just have that slight bit of gatekeeping you can't get rid of inside you. Pierce Brown. You have a little bit of a superiority complex where you think you're smarter than a lot of the people around you, but you're not like a bad person. You have a good people who like being around you, but you definitely are kind of cocky. Terry Pratchett. Discworld. You're very cool. You're like really cool, but you don't realize how cool you are, and you kind of struggle with that fact. You probably also are a little bit anxious, maybe you haven't quite found your happiness, but just know overall, you're a pretty cool dude or dudette, and I'd like to hang out with you. Mark Lawrence. Who hurt you? Are you okay? You really need a hug. I'm so sorry, whatever happened. Patrick Rothfuss. You're pretentious, but you know it. You know you're a little pretentious, and that's all right. There's nothing wrong with a little bit of pretension, and you're not entirely wrong. Great writer, so like, you like to bring up like obscure historical events to your friends, delve into some themes and some things that aren't typically brought up, but you're not super obnoxious about it. Your friends roll their eyes, but like, everyone loves you, you're fine. Frank Herbert. Dune. You're the kind of person who likes to talk down about Star Wars, making their fandom even more toxic, and you take great pleasure in doing so. Don't you, you sick Isaac Asimov. Is he really, though? Is he really, or you just want to say that to sound smart? Maybe you're a little bit insecure. Maybe you're not as well read as you claim to be. Isaac Asimov's great, but really? Is he holding up to being your favorite now? Heinlein. If people point out to you how certain pieces of artwork have not aged extremely well, you put your head in the dirt and you're going to continue to enjoy what you enjoy no matter what. You're stubborn. You are a stubborn person who does have good taste, but you need to adapt with the times for the love of God. Raymond D Feist. You're actually as well read as everyone claims to be. You have the experience that so many wish they did. You just also don't necessarily have the riskiest taste. You're gonna go for the safe bet, but also talk the talk and walk the walk. So I respect you, but I don't necessarily agree with you. Arthur C. Clarke. You never read outside of science fiction or fantasy. It's your home bread and butter, and you stay where you're safe. You also pretty much do the same with movies, don't you? Martha Wells. Just like me, you're in therapy. Neal Stevenson. You're such a hipster, you go for the pick that even the kinda hipsters miss out on. You are balls deep in trying to find the most, like, pretentious pick you could, and you went so deep, you found extreme quality. You're just annoying about it. Tad Williams. Extraordinarily well read, a little bit pretentious, but overall someone who, when their opinion is given on the genres, or in general literature, I'd say most things, you're gonna be respected, because this is again a sign that you walk the walk and talk the talk, and you have beautiful taste. Larry Niven. You don't exist. A lot of people like him, but he's not anyone's favorite. N.K. Gibson. You're smarter than me, but you aren't necessarily into sci-fi or fantasy for the sci-fi or fantasy. You read this because of what it had to say, and whether or not you're a fan of the larger genre whole is irrelevant to the fact that you just loved this and appreciate it for the material it is, meaning you often look for the deeper meaning within the works you go after, whether it's film or books. Tamsin Muir. You really wish you were Gideon. You really wish you were Gideon, and I'm sorry. You're not gonna be. But you're probably pretty cool, and I think a lot of people like being around you, because to want to be that, you're kind of awesome. Robin Hobb. You own a weighted blanket, or a blanket that means a lot to you, and you use for like your specific cozy cuddle time, and that's fine. You need it to deal with the emotional trauma of what happens to the characters you're a fan of. You like to snuggle up and read a book, you don't necessarily like listening to them as much, and you have an immense tea collection. Joe Abercrombie. You have spectacular taste, but people have also hurt you in your life, and or you are just frickin' jaded with the world around you. So you like and appreciate a lot of things that are worth your love, but you also as an individual are just you're kinda done and tired. Love you though. Stephen King. You either had a very sheltered childhood or one that was not sheltered at all, and you 100% have a somewhat difficult relationship with your parents. One way or the other, you definitely do. J.K. Rowling. For the love of God, read something else. It's been over 8 times you've read them. Stop. There's a whole world of literature out there. You can't become a wizard, and your Hogwarts house has no actual say in your personality. I was a software engineer. I know how those quizzes are designed. You get the answer you seek out, so just please read something else, please. Philip Pullman. Do I even have to say it? You're an atheist or agnostic, and you are very adamant about it. Very adamant about it. Ursula K Le Guin. You really wish for a more whimsical time in your childhood. You still crave that element, and you miss it every single day. No matter what exterior you put on, there is a core beat within you that'll never die, that wants more than anything to live in a magical, beautiful landscape. Brent Weeks. You like modern fantasy quite a bit, you've read a hefty amount, you tried the classics, they're not your favorite, but overall, you're someone who reads for pure pleasure, and you don't care about the general snobbery around fantasy, and you found what you've liked, and you're going to enjoy it, and that's awesome. I like you a lot by default for just knowing what you like and not partaking in any of the BS gatekeeping that goes on. I'll invite you to the party any day. John Gwynn. You're into fantasy for the epicness. No ifs, ands, or buts about it, but that doesn't mean you have bad taste, because you could have gone a much worse route. You found quality that matches a specific desire you have, and that's pretty cool. And yeah, John Gwynn's awesome. William Gibson. You've done drugs. You have done drugs. You're smart, and you use drugs to try and be okay, but you're on the mend now and you're doing a lot better. Oh, or you're bandwagoning cyberpunk right now, which is also fine. Enjoy it, but read outside of this guy alone. Neal Stephenson's a good way to go. Nicholas Ames. You're the nerdy type who's extremely extroverted. You may need your quieter moments, but in general, you like to be out and about with your pals, and that's great. You also will never not love a solid game of D&D, because duh. Lee Bardugo. You were that Harry Potter obsessed person, but you finally did break free and expand your horizons, and everyone around you is very proud of you for doing so. You found a new favorite, good job, and hey, I get the appeal, so wonderful. Thank you on behalf of all millennials for finally breaking out of the Harry Potter bubble. And finally, Victoria Schwab. You have pretty strong preferences in what you like in your books that are oddly specific, but you have a great ability to spot potential overall where others might miss it. You also are not going to be overly fanatic about recommending your favorites to others. It's going to be something that's like more personal to you, and while you may occasionally recommend the book, it's not going to be like the fanatic level you see from Sanderson, whether that's books or movies or anything along those lines. All right, this has been just me making very broad assumptions. Let me know if you think I got any of these accurate at all, or if you think I was completely off the mark and this just hit you as like BuzzFeed, blah, blah, blah. I really tried my best to like speculate on what could be the implications for liking a specific author. I don't know. Let me know in the comments down below. Like and subscribe if you've not already. Hit the Patreon if you want to support what I do here. And have a good one, y'all. Peace. And of course, I'd like to record a special shout out to my latest high tier Patreons, Travis, Vermulum, and Hunter.